for anyone who's a Sherlock Holmes fan, The Talons of Wang Chiang. It's a really small thing to reference, not really to do with the story, but I just get a big kick out of seeing Tom Baker as the Fourth Doctor, rolling around, like 18th, 19th century Great Britain in Sherlock Holmes attire. That just is fun and really cool to me. And moving on from there, the serial directly following that, Horror of Fang Rock, is there's this little small moment when everyone is really sizing the impending doom that is upon them, and it's the Doctor's sheer delight at that. I mean, everyone could die, and he has this ear-to-ear, toothy grin, whatever you want to say, and I just think it's really fun and really cool. The final thing I want to mention with Tom Baker is actually, I don't have much to say except the title, City of Death. I've seen statistical things that suggest by fans this is probably the best Tom Baker serial. In fact, some list it as potentially the best serial in Doctor Who history. But it's just very entertaining. Tom Baker from beginning to end, his interactions with Romana II, and so on and so forth. It's just, I've watched it so many times. It's just really cool. So many little moments here and there. Probably the funniest one, which I'll mention briefly, involves Duggan sneaking up behind them and putting a gun to the Doctor's back, and the way the Doctor calls attention to it is just, it always stands out and is always funny to me. So moving on from the fourth to the fifth Doctors, we have Peter Davison, who takes over the role, and the first thing I want to mention with him comes from Earthshock. It's not a favorite moment, obviously, because we're talking about, spoiler alert, the death of a companion, but I just think it's very interesting, the sort of uncharacteristic resolve the Doctor shows in not wanting to save Adric. Now, I'm not a real fan of Adric at all, but so this was kind of like, thank God they got rid of him. No offense to the actor who played Adric, but annoying. Anyway, it really struck me that this was an uncharacteristic thing for the Doctor to do, especially with the final moment that I'll mention regarding the Fourth Doctor. But before I get to that, the second most notable thing comes from the serial The King's Demons, and simple two-word explanation. Sword fight. There's the little sword fight he has with, I can't remember if it's the companion chameleon in disguise when he has the sword fight or not, or if it was actually just one of the, the King's Knights, whatever. But it's just really fun to see some more physicality with the Doctor, especially the Fifth Doctor, who, in all the DVDs I own and I've seen, there hasn't been a lot of in them. So that's why that stands out to me. Moving on to the third most notable Fifth Doctor moment comes the Five Doctors. And, enough said. You got five Doctors rolling around, and great little homage to William Hartnell, because, of course, by that time, he was either too sick or had already passed away. So they had an actor, I believe, by the name of Richard Herndal, take over the role of the First Doctor, which, I don't know, it kind of doesn't sit all that well with me, but, for the purposes of the story, I guess I can kind of sort of buy it. At least they got the original Susan back, as portrayed by Carol Ann Ford. But I just, you got four really, because they couldn't get Tom Baker due to some disagreeing. But we do see him briefly in a video clip from an unused or never gone back to Doctor Who story. But you have four Doctors running around dealing with, shall we say, spoiler alert, once again, a couple of bad Time Lords, or maybe one bad Time Lord. I don't remember specifically, but it's a great romp, and sometimes a little long-winded, but still very cool. Now, the final moment I wanted to that I referenced earlier comes from the Caves of Androzani, and this is the penultimate finale for the Fifth Doctor. Let me just sum it up by saying he once again, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen, he sacrifices his life to save his companion Perry, and the way this is done, it's just really touching and cool, and that's awesome. So moving on from there, we go to Colin Baker, the Sixth Doctor, and I want to start off with the Twin Dilemma, which I believe is his first story, I think. Basically, what I'm remembering here as notable is the sort of irascibility and ornery nature that sort of harkens all the way back to Hartnell's debut. Only here it's a lot more on overload. I mean, almost disconcertingly so. If this is the one, I don't remember exactly, where he actually sort of attacks Perry and almost chokes her. It's just really unsettling and really, again, to use the term as before, uncharacteristic, but it stands out for that reason. Moving on from there, sort of humorous little segment from the story The Mark of the Rani, his downhill slide on a pushcart. Just, I don't know, and they use that as a cliffhanger. This is kind of funny, kind of weird. I just love the shot of him laying on this thing, going downhill. I don't know. You don't expect the Doctor to be in positions like that, but again, that's why it stands out. Then we go on to the third notable thing with Colin Baker from the two Doctors, and again, as with the three Doctors and the five Doctors, here we just have two Doctors, dealing with each other and being, coy and funny with each other, and some of the craziness that happens with the second Doctor and transforming and all this stuff. But it's just a really cool romp yet again, and this features the Return of the Sontarans. Of course, they've been around a couple of times since their debut, but they're the chief baddies, if you will, in this. Moving on to again, getting back into like those touching or deep moments with the Doctors. The final Sixth Doctor thing that I always think of comes from the Trial of a Time Lord, and there's this point where he has a speech, basically a summary speech against the Valeyard, and I can't recall what exactly he says, but the dominance he portrays, because essentially he's got to defend himself in this, as the title suggests, and it's really cool. So, moving on to the Seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, the first thing that I recall or recollect fondly comes from Remembrance of the Daleks. I shouldn't say fondly, more interesting than anything else. But as I mentioned in a previous video, the most notable things to me are the Doctor's allusions to its somewhat darker potential history. The mystery of who he is and what his history is. But most notably comes the decisive blow against Davros and the Daleks and their world Skaro using the Hand of Omega. Again, this could be somewhat uncharacteristic of the Doctor, but it definitely stands out as being a dramatic chain of events. Moving on from there, just a brief thing as referenced in the serial Battlefield, allusions to the fact that the Doctor is Merlin. Especially with Sylvester McCoy's take on the Doctor and his sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but the way his mannerisms, the way he carries himself, you could almost see that. So moving on from there, the third notable thing that I'd like to mention comes from the final aired original series episode Survival, or serial rather, Survival, is the battle of wits and minds and bodies between the Doctor and the Master toward the end of it. It's just really, it really ramps up and is really cool, and the entire serial kind of, I think they even said this on one of the, commentary tracks, a fan commentary, I believe, that it kind of almost felt like a precursor to the Eccleston series in the way it was filmed and the way people look and so on and so forth. There's even a woman that they call out as being, oh, there's Jackie, Jackie Tyler, Rose's mother, and it does. It really feels like an evolution in the Doctor Who series, and it's a real shame that it stopped at that point. But anyway, moving on. A few years after that, we get to Sylvester McCoy's final moment I want to mention, which is the first, quarter of the TV movie with Paul McGann, where he's shot and taken into surgery, and his crazed, situation being on the doctor's table as they're putting wires in him and they can't get him, knocked out effectively enough. It's just crazy, and I don't know. His performance in that scene is just something that you watch it and you're kind of like wide-eyed, like wow, this is getting out of hand. But in that movie, we move on to the Eighth Doctor, of course, with portrayed by Paul McGann, and some moments that stick out to me, because this is his only time that he's been on screen thus far, is when after he regenerates and he comes out of the morgue and he scares the morgue technician half to death. That's pretty funny, as it coincides with the original movie Frankenstein and the monster in the film scaring the patrons. The second thing I want to mention is after he follows Grace home, the companion in the movie, Grace Holloway, he is trying to remember who he is and where he's from, and he finally recalls Gallifrey, and although he's still not sure where that is. But in the middle of this revelation, he is just delighted with the shoes she's given him, and this is just a charming, fun moment in this movie. Soon thereafter, when he's trying to explain to her the danger that is impending due to the Master opening the Eye of Harmony, he basically gives Grace a visual explanation of how bad things are going to get by pushing through a glass window that has become, this warping, surreal thing, and he actually passes through it because it's, destroying the world, essentially. And, of course, the final thing I want to mention with Paul McGann, I've heard reference to the fact that this is one of the Americanized things to the story, but come on, it's a motorcycle chase. He's being chased by an ambulance on a police motorcycle. That is just pretty cool for, first time we get on-the-road action, I guess, since Bessie in the Pertwee Third Doctor days. But that's really cool.